Jeff said, I'm leading an IoT security initiative we have in Telefonica, aiming at providing security services for IoT to our customers, initially focused or based on cellular connectivity, which is what I will talk about. In this presentation, what I am trying to explain is how we can leverage on key assets on the cellular networks in order to provide IoT security. So let me start with this IoT model, with generic IoT model, which I took from the GSMA documents that you can find in their website. Just to explain that IoT is an end-to-end problem, so you have to make sure that it's secure from end to end. So this generic model, in your right-hand side, you have the IoT service ecosystem, which is something where based on servers that are collecting or sending order to the devices, right? Then you can expose that information via APIs or via mobile applications that users can use in order to get that information. Then on the other hand, you have the endpoint ecosystem, which is very complex, of course, and in the middle you have the communication networks. So from a security point of view, you have on one side, which is the IoT service ecosystem, that this is shared with the rest of IT services, in the sense that you have servers that collect information and expose that information through APIs or applications. But the key point here is that we must not forget that this is also part of IoT, because we have seen in the news that many players that could be considered relevant in IoT have been hacked precisely because they haven't taken care of that part of the end-to-end. And they have exposed databases or servers or web servers, for example, with that presented default passwords and could be exposed to fraud or data breaches. So that's important, that we must not forget that this is part of the whole piece. Then we have what is new in IoT, which is the devices. And this is new because currently anything can become a connected thing. No? Till now, most of things were having computing capacity, but now we are adding a connectivity, and that makes that we have a new paradigm right now. So how is this new? What are the key security challenges that IoT devices bring? First of all, the heterogeneity. It means that there are a lot of use cases and a lot of OS platforms and so on. If you think about smartphones or computers, we have 2-3 different operating system platforms, and that's easy to manage. And they are also managed by big companies that have resources to provide security mechanisms. And that's not perfect, but at least they have those resources. In IoT, you have plenty of platforms, and the panorama is completely different, because you have manufacturers or IP cameras, for example, that sell those products with a small margin, and they have difficulties to add security to those devices and to the whole service. Then you have a lot of devices that have limited resources. They cannot execute cryptographic functions or algorithms, or they have battery restrictions and so on. Also, you have the problem of dispersion. Think about smart meters or this kind of, or cars, or this kind of devices that are all spread around. What's the problem there? How do you operate and manage those devices if they have any problem? Maybe it's not cost-effective to send someone there to solve the problem. So this is something you have to consider when you deploy an IoT service. Then we also have long life cycles. Again, think about the smartphones. They are designed to be in operation for 4 or 5 years. We have achieved to have automatic updates of the software, and that reduces the threat surface. But at the end, when the manufacturer of that device wants to stop supporting an operating system version, then stops providing updates, and the users stop benefiting from updates, from new features, so they are moved to buy a new device. That's not the case in IoT. You can have devices that are like 15 or 20 years in operation. And finally, it's not clear who is liable when there is a problem. If your devices are hacked and someone, a third party, is attacked due to a vulnerability in those devices, who is liable for that? That's not clear. In fact, I recently read the last book from Bruce Schneier, probably you know, it's called Kill Here to Click Everybody, and he talks about this problem. And I'm surprised because he's supporting regulation on that. But this is a key point here. And in fact, probably you know, but during the last months, some of the first regulations for forcing or asking device manufacturers to add reasonable security features has been published and enforced, and being California the first place where something like that happens. Of course, that's not clear, but in my point of view, that means that we need to take care of that in order to solve the IoT security problem. So now let's focus a little bit on the problems that a device, or threats that a device is exposed to. So coming back to that model I presented, we have a device here, and we have two kinds of potential attacks or threats over that device: physical and remote, physically ones and remotely ones. So starting with remotely ones, you can have someone sniffing the communications of that device. If there is some secret in that channel, then the security of that device can be exposed. We also have network services that are exposed or are published by that device. We can also try to hack some of the vulnerabilities that those services may have. We also have console access that can be exploited remotely. For example, a web application that allows us to manage that device. But that console access can also be local if the device have an interface, right? And we also have other kind of threats that can be physically exploited, like reading the local bus communications, trying to see if there is some secret going by. And also, this is more sophisticated, but can also be present. You can access that chip, the information contained in a chip. Probably there is some trust anchor, some confidential secret that is used, or where the device, the security of that device is based on. So this is just to summarize the kind of threats that a device is exposed to. So now, after seeing that, what we think are the key security requirements? There are a lot more, but we are focused right now in two. First of all, one of the key security requirements is device identification. That's the basis for everything. If I am not able to make sure that the identity is the device is the one who claims to be, I have a problem. So one of the first things I have to provide is a secure and easy mechanism in order to provision identity and also to authenticate devices. And we have a service called Secure Credentials. I will talk a little bit more about it in order to solve this requirement. Second requirement is about proper device behavior. This is very generic, but I will try to explain. What's this? Well, even I'm sure that a device is the one it claims to be. I cannot be sure that he's working properly. He hasn't been, that it has been hacked or is doing things that are not good, right? So the point here is, from what can I do from the network in order to make sure that the device is behaving properly? And this is another service we call IoT threat detection. I will talk a little bit more later. So let's start with secure credentials. What is it about? I'm talking about cellular networks, so this is the schema we have. Devices on my right, IoT service platform on my left. We have the communication network in the middle. So till now, what we have with cellular connectivity is the capability to create a secure end-to-end communication layer. So from the device to the cellular network, we use the SIM card. As you know, we create a secure channel, and we are able to identify that SIM card. And of course, you also have to create a secure link between the SIM and the device. And let's start with identifying that SIM card. Then we, from the cellular network to the IoT service platform, can create a secure channel by creating VPNs, right? It also provides strong encryption and provides isolation from the internet. So, but the point here is that we are not authenticating the device at an application layer. We are only authenticating that SIM card at the cellular network. But what we need is this, because at the end, we in the device have an application that is sending information to the IoT service platform or receiving commands from that same platform. So this service is about how do we leverage on that, which is in green, in order to provide that, or meet that requirement that is on the top layer. So we have created a component which is called credential broker, which is able to intercept that, leverage on the identification of that device on behalf of the cellular network, and then check that the device is authorized to connect to the IoT service platform. We have done that with Amazon Web Service, basically because we create rules based on the identity of that SIM card, which is basically the IMSI, the subscriber identification, and also the equipment identification, which is the email. And then that rule says that that device can connect to that service or that application in Amazon Web Service. Once we do that, we request, you know that in order to connect a device to Amazon Web Service, you need to generate a certificate, or the device needs to use a digital certificate in order to make authentication, and there is a mutual authentication. So what we are doing here, our credential brokers request a certificate to Amazon Web Service and takes that certificate and sends it securely to the SIM card of the device. How do we do that? Using the OTA platform, the over-the-air platform. We are already using that to install applets or some kind of applications in the SIM card. So this is something that we have been using, the telcos have been using for some time. And finally, the device is able to authenticate and connect to the Amazon Web Service platform. We have two different versions of this service. One is that device is able to manage that digital certificate. So we have to send that certificate to the SIM card. But it's also possible to do something for not so complex devices, such as creating or setting a proxy here that is able to manage that certificate on behalf of the device. This is another version of the service. Now, let's move to the second service, the IoT threat detection that I mentioned before. So we have the same scheme here. The problem we have is that that device can be hacked locally by manipulation of that device, or remotely if there is some accessible network service that have some vulnerability that can be exploited remotely, right? So the point here is what we can do from the network. And this is the basis of this service. What we do is, as in IoT, devices mostly have repetitive communication. What we are doing is trying to profile those devices. So we analyze the network traffic in order to understand what's the normal behavior of that device, what kind of protocols uses, when, how much information is sent in each, how many packets at which period of time, and so on. And we create a profile of those devices. Then, once we have that profile, we are able to detect anomalies. And once we detect an anomaly, are able to make an in-depth analysis in order to see if that anomaly is due to a security problem or there is another root cause. For that detection of security incidents, it's key to have cyber intelligence. That cyber intelligence must be fresh. So that's the reason we have IoT honeypots, which have the objective of getting that cyber intelligence information. What we are doing is exposing replicas or similar devices to the ones that our customers have in order to get that intelligence and inject it to this service and be able to detect those potential threats that are affects the devices. Just before I finish, 3 key takeaways. First of all, what I said at the beginning, I think that IoT security requires an end-to-end approach. Devices are the new, but we cannot forget that there is an IoT service platform that whose security has to be protected too. Second key takeaway for me is that based on the threat surface that devices are exposed to, that any service requires a risk analysis in order to understand what are the real risks, because you cannot deploy all the possible solutions or security mechanisms in all the cases. In some cases, physical protection is not so important, especially if the device is in a place where it's controlled and so on. So, and it can increase the costs of the development. So doing a risk analysis to understand what are the real problems of that one implementation is key. And finally, what we are doing with cellular network is try to provide things beyond connectivity, adding security services like the one I presented in order to extend the pure connectivity. And that's all on my side. So.
Okay, Vincent, thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you.